You're now watching Way Back Wednesday, sponsored by Davenport Auto Park, the ride of your life. And also sponsored by Flores Glass, serving the area since 1977 with residential and commercial work.
Good evening, friends, and welcome to another episode of Way Back Wednesday. I'm Randy Adcock. So glad you could be with us tonight. I got all excited about tonight's show 3 or 4 times this week, and I'll tell you why in a minute. But, if you remember, I mentioned this it's been 3 or 4 months ago now. I reached out to the Wilson Library at UNC Chapel Hill, and I requested some pictures. Charlie Killebrew aerial shots specifically of Rocky Mount from the 1950s. And so they sent me some pictures, and what they sent me was not what I had asked for. And I replied back and said, thank you for what you sent me, but that's not the same ones that I was looking for. And so long story short, they had somewhat of a mix-up in their cataloging system. They apologized for the mix-up and said, we realize now we sent you the wrong ones. We'll try to find you the right ones. Well, I got an email today from the Wilson Library at Chapel Hill. Not only did they find the pictures I requested, they sent me about a half a dozen others from downtown Rocky Mount that are just absolutely exquisite. I wanted to share them with you tonight, but I can't because I actually found something else I wanted to share with you. But rest assured, we'll get to those pictures, if not next week, week after that. All in all, it's probably about 8 or 9 of these pictures at a high resolution. Charlie Killebrew from his collection, and they're just phenomenal pictures that I'm gonna blow them up, put them on a poster and hang them on my office. That's how great pictures these are. But anyway, they're coming in a future show. We talked about and had to spend quite a bit of time last week about the grist mills around Rocky Mount, and specifically the Davenport grist mill. I had the occasion to get out there this weekend. I got an invitation from Steve Looper to come out and visit the property. My son Daniel and I went out there, and we spent, 45 minutes, maybe an hour out there. I did take some pictures, and we'll share those in a future show too. But that was like stepping back in time. It was such a neat experience. I had been to that location once before via the river, probably 40 years ago or more. Buddy and I paddled a canoe, as I recall, up Tar River from somewhere downstream and made it up to the dam, and of course couldn't go beyond that. And so we drifted back downstream and fished or whatever. But I had not been down there to that area in probably 40, 45 years, it's been that long. And it was just amazing, not only to see what's left of the original structure, the dam across the river, and there's some huge stonework, foundation supports and so forth. There's some of the metal, I guess not gears, pulley mechanisms, I guess you'd call them pulleys on shafts and so forth. Steve has done an incredible job landscaping down there. He's cut down trees and cleared out the area where the original grist mill used to stand, where the building itself stood, I should say. And so it's a constant, ongoing, effort with him and his family to get the place like a home away from home. He's kind of looking at it as a vacation getaway. He's got a travel trailer down there, and it's just really neat. So I understand a local photographer, Jerry Brabham, took some pictures down there too. And I'm gonna see if I can get up with Jerry and see if he'll let me utilize his pictures on the show. I'm sure his will be much better quality than the ones I took. But anyway, that's something that's coming in a future show too. But thanks again to Steve Looper for inviting me out. It was really nice to visit the property and just kind of get a step back in time. That grist mill, according to the family, it was actually constructed sometime in the late 1700s. And so it's probably one of the oldest grist mills in the state. I don't know if it's the oldest or not, but it's certainly one of the oldest. So a lot of history there. I spoke with Joe Bell this week, and Joe shared with me a picture that he had gotten recently from Tracy down at the Rocky Mount Library of a full-page ad that appeared in the Rocky Mount Telegram some years ago, talking about the Westeries Crossroads community. And that kind of lit a little bug under me, and so I started doing some research on that. And we're going to do a show in the very near future on that area. Again, we won't do it tonight because when I stumbled across what I'm about to show you here, I just felt compelled to dedicate tonight's show to what I've got here in front of me. We are going to revisit grist mills. I've got some more information since last week's show about other grist mills that I was not aware of, and in fact 3 on Stony Creek. So we'll talk about all that in future shows. But tonight's show is specifically about, I don't know how many of you know Mr. Miles Glasgow over in Nashville. He runs Glasgow Sign. He and his son Tim run Glasgow Signs over there. Super nice folks. I do their computer work, and they've done some sign work for me in the past. But I was over there earlier this week. I had a little plaque made up for my shop with our operating hours and so forth. And while I was there, Mr. Glasgow showed me this book that he acquired. I'm not exactly sure where he got it from, but it's old and it's worn and it's tattered, and he gave it to me in a bank bag to use to protect it. I just want to kind of share a little bit about this book with you. First of all, as I said, it's really, really old. I'm guessing it's probably from the 1920s, maybe 1930s. It's really, really frayed. The first 20 or so pages are missing. The front cover, of course, is missing. The back cover is missing. So we don't have a title for the book. We don't have any information regarding when it was published or created. But it is just absolutely a treasure of information about very early Rocky Mount. I'm going to kind of hold it up to kind of get you an idea. This is roughly, I'd say maybe 9 inches by 5 inches. And it's just got a lot of pictures in it. These are not, this is page 27, so it tells you right there. It's quite, the first thing I come to is page 27 because that much is missing. I think I saw page 23 and 24 kind of stuck in further back in the book earlier. But anyway, this is the First Methodist Episcopal Church and the Presbyterian Church as the first 2 things that I noticed when he handed me the book to look at. And then in addition to having a bunch of old pictures, there is some really neat history in here. I was just reading before tonight's show about, we've talked before about the Tar River Lumber Company in Rocky Mount, and there's about a 6 or 7 page spread in this book that talks about, here we go, I'm gonna just hold this up. This is, it starts right here about the Tar River Lumber Company, and it tells about how it got started, the principals, the owners, and it's just, like I said, page after page after page of history that was written in the time frame that these businesses were in operation. And so it's even got pictures of prominent people. There's Mr. W.L. Kroom, who was one of the principals of the business. But as I said, I was thumbing through it at Glasgow Signs earlier this week, and I immediately fell in love. I said, I've got to get these pictures on the show. And so the next challenge, or chore if you will, was how to get the pictures out of the book into a format we could use on the show. And I tried several things. I tried taking a picture with my phone, and that just didn't work well. I've got 2 scanners in my office, and I tried one, and it didn't work well. I was certainly concerned about the condition of the book, didn't want to put on any undue stress on the book itself. But I managed to scan, I don't know, 28 or 29 pictures, and that's not all there is, and there's more than that in this book. But I just kind of randomly went through and picked out pictures that I thought were a good representation of what's in here. So without further ado, Lee, let's jump right into it. Let's go to picture number 1. And, you know, I thought I knew about all the banks in Rocky Mount. I thought I had seen all the pictures of the banks in Rocky Mount, but this is one that I may have this picture somewhere. I do have a bunch of pictures of banks that I've collected over the last few years of doing this show. But this was one of the pictures in this book, and you see there it says the Bank of Rocky Mount, Rocky Mount's oldest, most noted, and premier financial institution. This, and again, since there was no copyright date or any information, we can only guess that these pictures are somewhere from the early 1900s. I'm going to guess 19-teens, maybe 1920s. But anyway, the address of this, I was able to look up in the 1908-1909 Rocky Mount City Directory, and the address for this bank was 147 North Main Street. So this was the Bank of Rocky Mount, and at whatever time this book was created or published, this was the oldest bank in Rocky Mount, the Bank of Rocky Mount. Okay, let's go to item number 2, and this is the same bank. It just shows you a little bit, slightly different angle. And a couple things to draw your attention to. The upper left-hand corner of the picture, I'm not sure what that is. It looks to be some kind of bell. And I'm wondering, it almost looks like, this is a general area where the old Rocky Mount Fire Department used to be, of course, on Main Street. And so, and of course there was a fire tower in the fire department and a bell in the tower. So I'm not quite sure what that structure is back in the back left-hand corner of the picture there. But it almost looks like to the far right might be the old city building where the fire department and all that was. So I don't know, neat old picture. The arch work, brickwork over the doorway there is very reminiscent of what I remember from the old Rocky Mount Fire Department in that building down there. So anyway, I'm going to guess all of these pictures again are from the 1900s, but I don't have a date on any of them, so just bear with me. Item number 3, Lee. Whoever knew Brattleboro had a oil company? This picture was taken of the plant of the Brattleboro Oil Company. I don't have an address for this. I think this may have been back over in the general area, maybe a block or so off of Main Street in Brattleboro. It's reminiscent of some of the buildings I see back over there where Joel Bozeman's got his offices and so forth. I don't know that. Oh, we got a call. Let's get this call. Hello, caller. You on the air?
All right. I think that book that you're looking at that's got some missing pages, etc. up front is a book that was initially printed in 1911. I forget who did it, but Tracy down at the library has got that thing page by page taken out and in a hardback bound volume that will give every page, I think, that is associated with it. I think there were 2 versions of it. One was in 1911 and the other one I think was in 1913 or 1915.
Okay.
All right.
I think, let me know that. I'm going to go down there tomorrow and see if I can find this. If for no other, I want to know the title of the book so I can try to get online and try to find one. I'd love to have it. This is, he's got me, let me loan me this one. He's loaning it to me, I should say.
He's very familiar with it.
Oh, good. Okay, buddy, thank you.
Goodbye.
Good night. All right, so anyway, this is the Brattleboro Oil Company, and as I said, I think it was in the general area over there, a block or so off north of Main Street in Brattleboro. Over there, for those that may be familiar with Brattleboro and where Joel Bozeman's Brattleboro Produce office and so forth is. Okay, Lee, let's go to item number 4 if we could then. Oh, hang that up. Okay, item number 4. This is the Brazel and Levy Tobacco Warehouse. We got item number 4 there, Lee. Coming up shortly, hopefully. There we go. I don't remember, I called myself looking for an address, and I think if I found it, I forgot to write it down, and I do apologize, I don't remember. You can see there, though, it's obviously at the railroad tracks. There in the foreground, there's railroad tracks. The article around it, I'll read it real quickly. It says, this firm is one of the best and most favorably known in North Carolina. They handle the season approximately 4 million pounds of tobacco. They have factories in Rocky Mount and Frankfort, Kentucky. The combined capacity of the 2 factories is 80,000 pounds a day. Business was founded in 1892 by J.C. Brazel. I was looking to see if anywhere in here it mentioned the address, and it does not appear that it does. But this is one of all tobacco warehouses in Rocky Mount, this is one I did not remember ever seeing before. And I'm going to do some more looking on this and see if I can find out where it was located. I'm guessing it was somewhere in the general vicinity of most of the ones in downtown Rocky Mount. Church Street, Washington Street, that area down there. Okay, Lee, let's go to item number 5 then. You know, this picture here jumped out at me for a couple things. When I first saw it, I said, I know this building, but I don't know it as Bullock, Phillips and Company. And as you see there, this says Bullock, Phillips and Company, Rocky Mount's leading furniture and undertaking house. Okay. It says the firm is composed of Messrs. W.A. Bullock, D.K. Stiles, and W.B. Phillips, 3 of the ablest, most respected, and most popular of this city's younger businessmen. Messrs. Bullock and Stiles, with Mr. G.B. Bird, who was their partner at the time, founded this business January 1st, 1906, under the name of Bullock, Bird and Company. The name changed to Bullock, Phillips and Company in 1907 when Mr. Phillips purchased the interest of Mr. Bird. So remember this building now, because again, these pictures were not dated in the book, and it looks like, maybe from what Eric was just telling me, this book was probably published sometime in the 1911, 1915 time frame. But this, throughout this book, there was kind of like little advertisements and so forth, and this was just one of those. Okay, so this is item number 5. You see the building there is identified here as Bullock, Phillips and Company, and even across the front of the building you can see there it's got the words Bullock, Phillips and Company. Okay, let's go to the very next one then, item number 6. If this looks familiar, it should, because it's the exact same building. The exact same building, and here it's identified as the Shore Building, okay? This is one of the handsomest buildings of its, oh, we got a call, let's get this call. Hello, caller, you on the air.
All right, the words that's on that building that you just showed, Bullock and Phillips.
Mm-hmm.
The word Phillips is spelled with only one L in it.
I noticed that, yep.
And that is the way that Parker Phillips and his folks and family who farm up there on Highway 4 going out towards Gold Rock spell their name. Most of the time the word Phillips has got 2 L's in it, but theirs does not.
I know Parker. I have to call him and see if it's his family. I bet it is.
Goodbye.
Thanks, sir. But, yeah, you know, and of course you may already remember or have already recognized this, but this is the building that many of us knew around Rocky Mount as the Alford Building or the First National Bank Building. It's now the home of the Larima Coffee Shop down there, downtown Rocky Mount. But I never knew or never heard it referred to as the Shore Building. But it says this is one of the handsomest buildings of its kind. It's owned by Mr. P.C. and A.E. Shore, numbered among our most substantial and highly respected citizens. Excuse me. The building is occupied by the National Bank, Bullock, Phillips and Company, and I cut it off, I didn't mean to, but it was Robbins Pool Room. Now, I remember a Robbins Pool Hall. I think it was, I don't know, I want to say over on Cokie Road. But at some point, there was a Robbins Pool Room in this building also. So how about that? All right, Lee, item number 7, if you would. And again, this is the same building. And as you see here now, it's identified as the First National Bank. So there were obviously several businesses that occupied this bank building. And I thought it was neat that it was referred to early time as the Shore Building. Because of the owners, and the owners were these two, I guess, brothers, P.C. and A.E. Shore. But anyway, this picture appeared, same picture appeared 3 different times. Well, it's not the same picture, obviously, because one of it's a picture with the advertisement for the furniture store on it, and the others are just the bank and then the other building. But long story short, a lot of history in that building, and I'm just glad to see it still operating and still being used today. I've not had a chance to go in the Larima Coffee Shop recently, but I understand they're doing pretty well down there, so I'm glad to hear that. And I just realized it's time for our first commercial break. Lee, bring it back to me if you would. We're going to take a quick break, folks. When we come back, we got a lot more pictures. I got about 25 or 30 pictures out of this book tonight. Spent a few hours today, in fact, going through and trying to pick out the best ones. They didn't all come out great. Some a little grainy, some a little blurry. But I was really pleased to be able to share these with you. So don't go anywhere. When we come back, we can get right back in this book and share some more of these pictures from early Rocky Mount. We'll be right back.
I'm Daniel Moss, owner of Cornerstone Funeral Home, and I'd like to invite you and your family to give our family an opportunity to serve you in your time of need. And we offer a full line of funeral services, everything from visitations to graveside services to cremations on site with a live crematory, as well as a banquet hall to meet the catering needs of our families that we serve. We offer catering service. We offer refreshments prior to visitations and services of our family. And we want to invite you to come and experience the difference here at Cornerstone Funeral Home.
When faced with special care needs for elderly or disabled loved ones, families want compassionate, comforting care. That's Tender Touch Home Care Services' goal, providing the level of care we would expect for our own. With over 10 years of home care excellence, Tender Touch provides an array of services that keeps your loved one at home. From personal care, light housekeeping, errands, and meal preparation, to our private duty care program, which combines
come in and they feel great when they leave. What is the Davis Furniture difference? The difference is we buy with you in mind. What is the Davis Furniture difference? The difference is we buy with you in mind. For generations, we have listened to our customers. We can help you find the look you want for every room in your house. Quality, style, color, and of course, service. Follow us on Facebook and Instagram. Davis Furniture, the family business where we treat you like family. Let us help you make your house a home. Davis Furniture, historical downtown Rocky Mount, on the corner of Hill and Main.
And we're back. Before the break, we're talking about these pictures from this book, and like I said, the front of the book was missing, the back of the book was missing. There was no information regarding when it was published, the title of the book, or anything else. So Mr. Miles Glasgow over in Nashville at Glasgow Signs was gracious enough to let me borrow the book for a few days. And I'm going to go by and see Tracy at the library tomorrow if I can, and see if we can, if she indeed has this original book up there or one like this. I'm going to try to get the title of it. Oh, got a call. Let's get this call. Hello, caller. You're on the air.
I've thought about it for a few minutes in the last 5 or 6 minutes, and I think the name of that volume was known as the Rocky Mount Record. And I think it was first printed in 1911, and then a year or two later it was done again. It was about the industrial aspects and whatever of Rocky Mount in the early days.
Okay.
Goodbye.
Goodbye. Thanks again. Okay. Yeah, that'll give me some more to go on. And when these books get this old, trying to find duplicates of it's almost impossible, obviously. But I've got a pretty little growing collection of books I've acquired over the last few years of doing this show, and I would really love to add a copy of this one to my collection. I'm gonna in earnest look and see if I can find one. Okay, folks, Lee, go ahead. Let's go to item number 8. And this is one of the better photos that I have seen of the old Cambridge Hotel. We've talked about the Rick's Hotel and some of the other hotels around the Rocky Mount area, but the Cambridge Hotel was down in the general area down there where the train station and so forth is, down by the Rick's Hotel there. And there's an article here, and the article kind of jumps around, and so what you're seeing here beneath the picture is actually not specifically about the hotel. I think there was a page before this picture that had more information about the hotel. But it was just kind of a neat picture, one of the better ones I've seen of the Cambridge Hotel. Okay, Lee, let's go ahead into item number 9. And this is a picture that actually includes 2 of Rocky Mount's early school buildings. And we've talked about both of these school buildings many times on the show in the past. The East graded school over on the Edgecombe side of town, and then the West graded school over on the Nash County side of town. And there's a little bit of an article about both of these schools on a preceding page and a page after these pictures. The text down beneath them is not really specifically about these pictures, so I won't bother to try to read any of this. But anyways, again, these are just some little bit better grade pictures than what I have seen in the past of these old school buildings. And it's neat to me to look at these old buildings, and particularly those that are still standing. A lot of these are long gone now. Item number 10, if you would, Lee. I'm not exactly sure where this residence was, but Rocky Mount has always been known, and there's a reference in this book, in fact, to the fine homes that Rocky Mount has been known for well over 200 years now. This is the residence of the Honorable F.S. Sproul, and I meant to look this up too, and I will try to do that just out of curiosity. For some reason, I seem to recall seeing either this house or another picture of this house at some time in the past. But it's just a neat old home. And again, Rocky Mount had some really, really nice homes that sadly have been torn down to make way for quote unquote progress over the years. And this is one, the majestic columns in the front, I think it's called a porta, what's the word for the little side thing? I want to say portico, but that's not right. But anyway, the little carport looking thing on the right hand side of the picture there. But yeah, this thing's got these magnificent, massive columns across the front. It's just a really, really neat house, and it's a shame that this house is no more, but I'm fairly certain this house has been torn down now. Anyway, I mentioned that the book has obviously a bunch of old buildings, and it's got houses, and it's got a lot of information about some of Rocky Mount's more prominent citizens in the early 1900s. And certainly there are names that you see mentioned over and over and over again throughout Rocky Mount's history, names like the Ricks, for example, and the Spruills, and the Davenports, and different family names that just one generation after another has been very influential and had a big impact on Rocky Mount's development. Item number 11, Lee, if you would. This is Mr. George F. Harrell. He ran a bicycle and sporting goods store in Rocky Mount sometime in the early 1900s. That's a great picture of him there. And it says the store of George F. Harrell on Main Street has become, within a few years, one of the best and most favorably known stores of its class in North Carolina. The extent and diversity of the stock carried has brought every citizen of this section in touch with his business in one way or another. Mr. Harrell's business transactions with the public have made it so popular with the classes of all trade. It is probable that nowhere else in this section of the state can someone find such high-class lines of goods. It says the lines include bicycles, the following standard makes: Raycycle, Rambler, Cleveland, Reading, it cut off the end there, Ivor Johnson. Ivor Johnson, many of you may not remember that name. I've got a shotgun, an Ivor Johnson shotgun that my grandfather owned. And so they made, of course, they were sporting company manufacturers. My grandfather referred to it as Ivy Johnson. He said, I got me an Ivy Johnson shotgun, but the name was actually Ivor Johnson. He carried Edison phonographs, Victor talking machines, Eastman Kodak cameras, Spalding's baseball, sporting goods stuff, tennis goods, shotguns and rifles in all standard makes, phonograph records. The electrical department of the store has lately grown into oh golly, part of this got cut off again. Anyway, George F. Harrell obviously had a pretty good little business going at Rocky Mount, at least for a few years. I'm not sure where this business was. I'm going to have to do some more digging and try to track down the location of this. For some reason, I want to say I've seen reference to it being on Main Street. I have to verify that. Okay, Lee, let's go to item number 12 then. This is another one of Rocky Mount's citizens that I'm not familiar with, but the home looks very, very familiar, and I want to say this home, it's either this home or one very similar to it, is located over off, somewhere off Franklin Street, back down near the new Rocky Mount Business Center, back over there, not too far from Brownsville School. But this is the home of Mr. H.S. Poole, who is both an architect and contractor, having 41 years experience in these lines. This is what's being written about him, of course, obviously in the book here. It says few of the buildings erected by Mr. Poole are the Farmer's Backer Warehouse, the Episcopal Church Parsonage remodeled, the Baptist Church at Spring Hope, the residence of Mr. Jim Hines and T.A. Brinkley, the residence of Mr. W.B. Bobbitt at Enfield. So anyway, he was obviously a pretty well-known architect and contractor in the early 1900s in Rocky Mount, and built homes for a lot of prominent people and indeed a lot of businesses and churches and so forth. Okay, let's go to item number 13. And this is Mr. Lee Davis Bullock, and he ran Bullock's Garage, and I don't have an address for this either. I want to say I have heard of this, and I may have even seen this picture in the past. I want to say this is somewhere down Washington Street, maybe in a general area where Rocky Mount Radiator used to be, down by Dillon Supply Company, some of that area down there. The building looks awfully familiar to me. But anyway, this is Mr. Lee Davis Bullock. Said he was born in Halifax County in January of 1863. So just after the Civil War, he was born, and so by the look at his picture, he looks to be maybe in his 50s, maybe his early 60s by the time this picture was taken. So I'm guessing, again, that kind of puts it in that 1910, 1920 time frame when he would have been the owner of this Bullock's Garage here. Okay, Lee, let's go to item number 14 then. And this is a home that some of you may remember over in Brattleboro, the residence of Mr. M.C. Brazel. Speaking of stately homes, this thing is just magnificent too. Look at the columns on the right-hand side there, and there's a little garage-looking carport thing on the side. There's a name for that. Somebody help me out. I keep wanting to say portico or porta something or other, but it's like a little carriage carport or something on the left-hand side of the home. Got these neat like balconies above the front of the home, and even on the very tip top of the house in between the chimneys there. I can imagine in the summertime the young ladies of the house get up there and sunbathing on the roof and get a little suntan. But this house was torn down many years ago. I remember when it was still standing in Brattleboro, and it was, at the time it was obviously dilapidated, run down, and that's what was eventually torn down. But it's just unbelievable that a home that was as fine as this one obviously was at some point could get to a point where it wasn't salvageable, and that just blows my mind. There was so many homes that were so grand and so luxurious at one stage, and then they just got to a point where no one cared about it anymore, and they just got torn down. Luckily, that did not happen to this next home. Item number 15, Lee. This is one we'll all remember, or recognize, I should say, Ralph. This is Mac Haven, and this is one of the really neat old pictures of Mac Haven. And you see some of the same characteristics in these homes, these old grand homes, the massive white columns on the front. And I think it's probably, this picture again, the early 1900s, Mr. J.W. Hines, the quote unquote Iceman around Rocky Mount, built his fortune selling ice, among other things. But this is one of the homes that, what's his name, Jesse Gerstle from Durham came down here and has redone his home. I've not had a chance to go in it since it's been remodeled, but I'd really love to do that. I think I've heard it's gorgeous inside, and so I'm looking forward to trying to get inside the homes in the not too distant future. But this is Mac Haven over on Gray Street. Okay. All right, Lee, let's go to item number 16 then. This is a building I do not recall at all in Rocky Mount. It does have the arch over the front door that we were talking about earlier that was prominent back in the early 1900s in certain buildings, and it was known as the Phillips Building. The little caption says, owned by Mr. Hyman Phillips of Tarboro, until recently an attorney of Rocky Mount, now practicing law with Solicitor Aldbrook in Tarboro. This building is one of the best office buildings in the city. So, and if you look above, directly above the door up there, near the roof line, there's some Roman numerals there. And if memory serves me, it's kind of, Lee, can you zoom in on that, where those Roman numerals are? It's MDCCCV and then 2 I's. So to me that, if I remember my Roman numerals correctly, that's 1907. So the building was obviously built in 1907. I'm not sure how long it lasted, but I'm fairly certain it's long gone. But I think it may have been somewhere in a general area of the Rocky Mount City Hall / fire department and the Masonic Temple, all net north east side of Main Street back in the early 1900s. Are you still with me, Lee? All right. Item number 17 then. Let's go to item number 17. This is the Pitts Warehouse. I don't know where this warehouse was. By it being in this book, I'm just going to guess that it was built sometime in the early 1900s. There you go. There's the Roman numerals there you can see on that previous building we were looking at earlier. MD is 1500, and then the 4 C's, each one of those is 100, so that's 1900, and then the V is a 5, and the 2 1s would be, of course, 2. So 1907, if I'm reading that correctly, and I think that's the way you read that Roman numeral there. So that tells you the building was built in 1907, and again, you can see that at the bottom of the picture, the arch over the door there, very reminiscent of what I remember seeing in the picture of the old Rocky Mount Fire Department City Hall building and those buildings down there. So, if you notice too on those covers over the windows, it said, there you go, Business College. In the 1950s, this may have been the same location. There was a business college downtown Rocky Mount. You could go get classes in secretarial skills, shorthand, typing, that kind of stuff. I'm fairly sure, in fact, I had an aunt that attended that college, business school, whatever you want to call it, and I'm wondering if it was this same building. That's very possible. I have to ask her the time I see her. I didn't see that earlier, but it says business college there on the awnings, I guess you'd call it, above the windows there. So anyway, neat old picture. Okay, let's go to item number 17 if we can then. And item number 17 is the pit warehouse. This is another one. I don't recall seeing this around Rocky Mount. I don't know where it was. Some of you I was able to look up in the Rocky Mount City directory and get a location and address on them. But unfortunately, this is one I did not do that on. I think I got distracted by something and did never go look up the address of this building. But obviously an old tobacco warehouse, natural lighting with the skylights in the roof there, the big sliding doors on the front to allow the trucks to come in and load the tobacco. Reminiscent of a lot of the old tobacco warehouses up and down Church Street of the day. All right, Lee, I'll tell you what, before we get any further, let's go ahead and take our next commercial break. It's 20 minutes till anyway. So bring it back to me, Lee. I've got another, dozen or so of these pictures to show you folks, so don't go anywhere. When we come back from the break, we'll jump right back in and show you some more pictures of way, way back in Rocky Mount. Don't go anywhere, we'll be right back.
I'm Daniel Moss, owner of Cornerstone Funeral Home, and I'd like to invite you and your family to give our family an opportunity to serve you in your time of need. And we offer a full line of funeral services, everything from visitations to graveside services to cremations on site with a live crematory, as well as a banquet hall to meet the catering needs of our families that we serve. We offer catering service, we offer refreshments prior to visitations and services of our family, and we want to invite you to come and experience the difference here at Cornerstone Funeral Home.
When faced with special care needs for elderly or disabled loved ones, families want compassionate, comforting care. That's Tender Touch Home Care Services' goal, providing the level of care we would expect for our own. With over 10 years of home care excellence, Tender Touch provides an array of services that keeps your loved one at home. From personal care, light housekeeping, errands, and meal preparation, to our private duty care program, which combines all of our home care offerings in one package.
Tender Touch Home Care Services, where your needs are our concern.
We're back. I was telling you earlier, I was talking about Mr. Glasgow letting me borrow this old book here. And if I get a chance tomorrow, I'm going to go to the library and just see if I can confirm the title and the publication date and so forth. The chances of finding this book out anywhere are slim to none. I realize that, as old as it is, there's very, very few still in existence anywhere. But I am going to look. So if the size of this book, I'm going to hold it up one more time. If the size of this book looks familiar to anybody, if you think you've seen this book or something similar to this, it's got the last page that I can testify as being a page is page 238. I don't know how many more will be on this that got lost somehow, but like I said, the first 20 or so pages are missing. The last page I can document is 238, so well over 200 pages in this book. And this is, in addition to the pictures, there's some neat pictures, but there's a lot of history here. It tells the story, a lot of how these businesses got started, the principals, who were the people that put the money into it, how the businesses changed hands, how some of them, expanded their operation into other areas, other fields of business. So to me, it's just a really, really neat snapshot back at how Rocky Mount was in the very early 1900s. And as I said earlier, it's sad that so much of the buildings and homes that were in this book are no longer here. But this is a neat record of what it was like then. So, all right, let's jump back in these leads. Let's go right now straight to item number 18, if we would. I don't recall ever seeing this picture before, but we've seen other pictures of this business. And so you may not recognize the picture of the business by the picture, but you'll recognize the name. This is the Planters Cottonseed Oil Company. And it, of course, over on Cokie Road, It burned in a massive fire in the 1980s. I want to say around 83, 84, somewhere along in there. The whole plant burned. I was actually gone when that plant. I was in the Navy then and overseas, and but I've seen pictures of the fire. In fact, we've shared pictures on the show of the aftermath of that fire, and indeed pictures of it burning. And so, but this, best I can tell, early 1900s, says the plant was organized in 1904. And so I'm not sure how much longer after it was organized that this picture was made, but you can see the bales of cotton out front, and the plant there where the cotton seed was processed into oil. And you know, I can imagine that was one heck of a fire. I'm not sure what other kind of oil they may have been processing there besides cottonseed oil, but in any case, oil by its very nature being flammable, I can see that was one heck of a fire, and indeed it destroyed the plant, obviously. Okay, Lee, let's go to item number 19 if we could then. This is a picture, the home itself I have seen obviously many times. This is referred to here as the country residence of the Honorable R.H. Ricks. That's Robert Henry Ricks, who, among other things, started the Ricks Hotel. He was involved with Rocky Mount Mills, several local banks. He was involved in the brickyard out at the end of Jeffries Road, out at Church Street. I was reading earlier today in one of the Rocky Mount City directories, under his name, under Robert H. Ricks' name, there was, oh God, it must have been close to a dozen different businesses, including 3 or 4 different banks, as I said, Rocky Mount Mills, the hotel. But he was just involved very much in a lot of different businesses in Rocky Mount. This was his home. This home still stands, by the way. It's out on Gold Rock Road, 48 Highway out from Rocky Mount. One neat thing, if you look real closer, you can see on the second floor of the home, that balcony up there, there's a swing, and somebody's sitting in the swing. We've got a call. Let's get this caller. Hello, caller. You on the air?
All right. Mr. Ricks was also one of the people that was involved in the starting of the Thornton Ricks Tobacco Company in 1886.
He was indeed. You're correct, sir. Yes.
That was the oldest tobacco redrying operation in Rocky Mount.
Yeah, you know, it's good in one sense that he finally got the recognition that he deserved and got, you know, inducted into the Twin County Hall of Fame. I understand there was some resistance, primarily due to him being in the Civil War and fighting on behalf of the Confederacy. But, you know, the man's contributions to Rocky Mount cannot be overstated.
Endless.
Endless is a good word, absolutely.
He was married. He and his wife never produced any children, and they had a trust that got put in place for higher education for anybody who was a descending family member. And I understand that the magnitude and the amount of money could never be exhausted. There would never be enough offspring coming into play that could utilize what the trust has got set in place.
You know, I've talked to Tracy at the library at some length about that trust, and she was involved in helping trying to locate some of the descendants. And if I'm not mistaken, I believe it was in excess of 900 descendants that were eventually identified. I don't know how many of those took advantage of the opportunity to get a free education courtesy of this endowment. But in any case, it was a massively large amount of money, and probably still exists in some form somewhere out there.
And the money just keeps pouring out of a pot, just like foam.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, buddy. Thank you here. All right. But yeah, this is a neat old home. It's been remodeled. It doesn't look exactly like this now, but and not certain that may be him in the far right-hand side there. Kind of hard to have in this picture, but it looks like maybe 3 or 4 women and then one gentleman, and I got a feeling that's him. Not sure who he's sitting in the swing up on the second floor there, but that's just it's a neat old picture of a country estate by a very prominent, very wealthy, and very distinguished prior citizen of Rocky Mount. Okay, Lee, item number 20, if we could, the Rocky Mount Hosiery Company. This is a neat old building here. I'm not certain about this. I want to say this building is currently being occupied by Stretch Line over there. I don't quote me, I could be wrong about that. I know at one time that building, before it became Stretch Line, it was called Rocky Mount Undergarment. and whether this, and I want to say that building has got a plaque on it with the date of being constructed somewhere a little bit later than 1905. So this may not be the same building, but in any case, this was a picture of the Rocky Mount Hosiery Company as it existed in Rocky Mount in the early 1900s. And there's nowhere in here, I was just kind of glancing over the article that's accompanying the picture, and it doesn't mention anything about a location. So I really don't know for sure if this is the same building I'm thinking about or not. It could be, it's similar in design and shape, but I wouldn't bet money this is the same building I'm thinking. All right, Lee, let's go then, if we could, to item number 21. We talked last week about the water treatment plan and the efforts to increase Rocky Mount's water supply and so forth. This just was a kind of a snapshot here. This kind of piqued my interest. This is a picture of the Rocky Mount Public Works, and it says Rocky Mount owns its water, sewer, and electric lighting system and works. The electric lighting plant alone shows a profit at the end of the year just past several $1,000s. So if I'm not mistaken, I believe this is part of the operation down there at the power plant down there at Tar River, where Chico's is now. And I'd love to know what happened to these turbines that were inside this building at one time. They remind me similarly designed to what's down there at Rocky Mount Mills, though these appear to be horizontal shafts, and the ones at the mill seem to have a vertical shaft, if memory serves me correctly. But anyway, Rocky Mount has been into power and electricity and water business for obviously well over 100 years now, and so that was just a neat snapshot of how things used to be. Let's go to item number 22, Lee, if we could. This is the Rocky Mount Sash and Blind Company. I did look this up. It was located at the corner of Bassett and Church Street. Bassett and Church Street. And you see the railroad tracks there in the foreground. Says this company is one of the most successful manufacturing enterprises in the city and one of the best managed. The high grade of work done has created for this plant a wide and very desirable market. They build sash, doors, blinds, moldings, mantles, and turned work. Says the reputation for making the best grade of furnishings in their line has been steadily built up by the most rigid inspection of every article turned out, only by the most expert labor being used, and honest and conscientious filling of every order. The fine inside work in many of the most handsome homes in Rocky Mount, residences in Rocky Mount, and other buildings, and indeed all over East North Carolina, testify to the high quality of the products of this plant. I don't remember anything about this, obviously, well before my time. I don't think any of this is still standing today, but I'm quite sure that some of these grand homes that we've been looking at here, some of the earlier pictures, probably had moldings and windows and doors and so forth that were manufactured in this plant right here. So it's a neat testament to not only Rocky Mountain citizens being able to build these fine and glorious homes, but that we had a plant right here in the city that could help furnish them with some of these more elegant features that you would expect to see in these fine homes. Okay, Lee, let's go to item number 23 if we could. And this is the Rocky Mount Savings and Trust Company. A few weeks ago we did a show about the early savings and loans and banks in Rocky Mount and the correlation between the banks and the building contractors and how important it was for these developers to be able to have financing and to provide financing to people that wanted to build a home. In 1908, this Rocky Mount City Directory for 1908 listed the Rocky Mount Savings and Trust Company as being at 144 South Main Street. That's obviously on the Nash County side of the tracks. In the same general area down there as the train station. It'd be at the other end. It'd be the other end, more toward Falls Road, end of Main Street. Not that far down, obviously, but I'm just saying, as opposed to the railroad side, it's going the opposite direction. 144 South Main Street was the address of the Rocky Mountain Savings and Trust Company. And Mr. F.P. Spruill, young fellow there, I'd say looks to be maybe in his 30s, was the cashier. Spruill being another one of those names that we remember in, Pointer and Sproul here, locally in Rocky Mount, a law firm in operation many, many years. So again, these family names that you see that were very influential and very much engaged in development of Rocky Mount at a very, very early time have managed to stay involved and be, remain prominent, if you will, literally 100 years after they began helping Rocky Mount get started. Item number 24, if we would, Lee. This is the Sagamore Club. The Sagamore Club I had read about previously, and it says this institution is the most popular social organization in the city. It has handsome club rooms on Main Street, and its membership is composed of our leading citizens. It is purely a social club for businessmen, and is conducted on high plane. No drinking, no gambling at all permitted. I wonder how true that really was. Anyway, it said it has been in existence for 9 years on a firm foundation and is a credit to the city. So this was obviously a gentleman's club. The advertisement here says no drinking or gambling permitted, so we'll take them at their word. It was located at 152 North Main Street, so obviously that would have been on the Edgecombe side of the tracks, on the north end of Main Street down there in the general area where City Hall, I think City Hall is somewhere around 138 or 132, somewhere along in there was the address. So this would have been a little bit north of Rocky Mount City Hall, the fire station and all that. So don't recall ever hearing anything about this when I was growing up, never knew it existed, but there was a gentleman's club called the Sagamore Club in Rocky Mount. All right, let's go to item number 25. Speaking of grand and glorious homes and just mansions, if you will, in the early 1900s, this home was referred to as the residence of Mr. T.J. Hackney. And many of us knew it in later years as the Battle Home. And of course, it occupies a space there on Sunset Avenue, or did, I should say, occupied a space on the corner of Sunset Avenue and Franklin Street. Long ago torn down, sadly. The story is that the last inhabitants of the house had it, I guess, on a will of sorts that the house was to be torn down. I guess no one wanted to spend the money to upkeep it, and because it would, home this large, I'm sure there'd been a fair amount of upkeep and maintenance that would need to be done on an ongoing and regular basis. And so apparently there was no one interested in doing that, so the decision was made to just destroy or demolish the home. And it's sad. We talked earlier about some of the characteristics of these old grand homes. Again, the massive columns in the front, the wraparound porch, the balcony up above, just so many features in these old homes that you see repeated over and over again. We're almost out of time, folks. We'll try to get a couple more here real quick. Lee, item number 26. This was Gorham's, Mr. T.C. Gorham's store here. It was located at 304 South Main Street, so this would have been on the opposite side of the tracks, on the Nash County side. Gorham, again, another name. We remember Bobby Gorham started Tarrytown Mall, of course, in the early 1960s. I'm sure this is one of his ancestors, probably his grandfather, I would guess. But in any case, another business that was popular back in the early 1900s. I think we got 2 or 3 more. Just real quickly, we mentioned earlier, Eric mentioned that Robert H. Ricks was indeed instrumental in starting Thorpe and Ricks Tobacco Company. And this is a picture of that original Thorpe and Ricks Tobacco Company from, again, sometime in the early 1900s. All right, Lee, item number 28. This is the residence of Mr. W.H. Newell. I don't know anything about Mr. Newell, and I don't know where this home was. Well, let me back up. I got an address here, 321 South Franklin Street. That's where this home stood at one time. I'm sure it's long gone by now. And lastly, item number 29, Lee, this is the home of Mr. W.L. Groom, which was located at 226 Franklin Street. Mr. Groom was affiliated with the Tar River Lumber Company. In fact, he was listed here in this book at the time as being the manager of the Tar River Lumber Company. I think I also saw him listed in another publication at some later time as being one of the principals. In any case, that was his home. He obviously a very prominent man in the 1900s, early 1900s in Rocky Mount. So that's going to do it. Oh, we got one call real quick. Let's take this real quick call. Hello, caller, you're on the air.
Mr. Groom, came down here to start the Tar River Lumber Company in the 1890s. He was a young adult. Folks, the generation before him had a lumber company operation in upstate New York, and he was a young man and came down here and developed the Tar River Lumber Company in the 1890s out there behind where Senior High School is now.
Right. You know, that plant burned and they rebuilt it.
Burned one time in 1920.
Right.
And there was a lot of business people in Rocky Mount that were very concerned about the loss of that industry. But it was rebuilt and then it burned again in the mid-1940s.
Right. They didn't rebuild it after the second time, I don't think, did they?
That is correct.
Right. That's what I remembered. Yep.
W.L. Groom was his name.
Yep. All right. Thank you, buddy.
Goodbye.
Have a good night. Okay. Lee, bring it back to me. Folks, that's going to do it for us tonight. We've run slam out of time. I hope you enjoyed seeing the pictures. I enjoyed sharing them with you. I look forward to sharing with you the pictures that the UNC Wilson Library sent me. I just oohed and ahed over those pictures today. I was looking at them on my computer. You can zoom in and you see such detail. They're really neat pictures. Eric, come see me tomorrow. You got to see these pictures. That's going to do it for us tonight, folks. Have a good evening. Take care of yourselves. Be kind to one another. We'll see you next week and more Way Back Wednesday. Good night.